up, guys? Welcome to the noisiest episode of the year for sure. I don't know how this is going to turn out, so I might be doing some audio dubbing. Remember a few episodes ago when I told you guys I was going to try to find some water so I can do some long exposures on the S21 Ultra? Well, I found the only water in southwest New Mexico. We're at the catwalk. So we're about an hour from my house. And I always forget about this place because I usually only come here in the summer so that I can jump in this pool right here. So what I want to do is, I found a nice waterfall. We're going to do some long exposures. I'm going to show you guys a couple of different ways that I'm going to do to get the long exposure. I have way too much stuff in my pocket. My knife is like stuck to my filters were like around my knife. So I've got these little moment filters, and then I've got this guy, which is the little adapter thingy. It's a universal adapter. I don't think it's gonna work very well with the S21, so I'm still waiting on the moment cases. I like the moment cases because like on my S20 Ultra, they have the lens and filter mount built into the case, but their S21 Ultra case isn't gonna be out for another probably month or two, like the end of March, early April or something. So I pre-ordered it and I just have to wait like everybody else. So I'm gonna try this. And if it doesn't work, then I'm just gonna get my big filters and I'm gonna hold them over like I would normally do it. All right, so let me show you guys what we're working with here. So that's the waterfall. And I want an S-curve. I'm gonna back out. I want something more like that. That's gonna wind in and out of the frame, and then maybe even a horizontal shot to get more of that windy feel. So if you'll notice right now though, we're just in regular photo mode. To do this, we're gonna have to be in pro mode. So I got my ISO way up. So I want my ISO all the way down. And you'll notice that I can't get a very long shutter speed. Right now I'm at 1/125th of a second. That's too fast. So if I take that shot, that water's not gonna be smooth at all. So that's what the filters are for. I've got a 6-stop neutral density filter and a circular polarizer. I'm gonna mess around with those, and when I put them on, it's gonna allow me to get a longer shutter speed, smooth that water out. All right, let me get set up real quick. I forgot that my assistant gear carrier today has my filters in his bag. So we've got my breakthrough photography filters. I don't know if we'll need them. I'm gonna try them with the moment filters first. But if it doesn't stay on very well, I'll just resort to holding these. This light is gonna be a problem, making it very hard for dynamic range. I might have to do exposure bracketing. All right, well, filters on. It's definitely sketchy. It's not recommended for this model. I know they said it's universal, but that camera bump, it's not sketchy. I would recommend if you want to do that, get the case. So the wide mode with the filter is letting in too much light. So I switched it back to the regular main sensor with the 26mm. I've got the 6-stop neutral density, but it's not enough. I'm only getting a 1-second exposure, and it's still too bright, so I'm gonna have to slow it down. 1/3 of a second. So the highlights on the water are exposed, but everything else is a little dark, but I can fix that in post because this is a raw image. All right, so now the problem you'll notice, the wide, ultra wide for the little 37mm filters is too wide. So that's why you're seeing that ring around, because the filter's too small. So if I want that ultra wide on there, I'm gonna have to use one of my bigger filters and hold it. Now you'll notice that it's completely blown out. That's the difference that a neutral density filter will make. So this is a 4-stop with a circular polarizer built in. The circular polarizer is going to allow me to cut through the water and get rid of any glare that's there. It's gonna make it darker, which is nice. All right, so now we've got the ultra wide on with the filter I'm holding over. But now you'll see we have all of the rocks blown out where the sun is. So we're gonna have to do a multiple exposure and then blend it in post. All right, so I'm gonna grab a few more shots the same way, doing the same thing that you've seen now. And as soon as I get those, we'll head back to the computer, away from the noise, away from the water, away from the sun, and we'll go from there. All right, it's the next morning. I just had time to look at the footage that you guys just saw, and I was very surprised that the audio actually worked pretty well. So don't have to redo that. All right, so I haven't looked at the actual images yet from the phone. So let's go ahead and jump into Bridge and check everything out, and then we'll go through, I'll edit a couple, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, so let's start off with like the hardest one possible. So I really like this composition. I really like the curve through here with the water. What we're gonna have to do though is I bracketed this quite a bit because that sky is severely blown out. So this is making a pretty tough dynamic range. And possibly, probably the HDR, the built-in HDR on the phone could have handled this. But Promo doesn't have the HDR, so you have to do it yourself, and that's fine, because it's just basically a couple clicks. So we're going to start with this one, which was, no, we need to start with the dark ones. So we're going to start with this dark one at 1/30th of a second, and then I'm going to select, and then I went from 1/30th of a second to walked it down all the way to 1/3 of a second. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. We're just gonna open all these up right here, select them all, and merge to HDR. Alright, I'm definitely taking off that auto settings, but we're gonna merge that. Alright, and now we should have a little room to play. So I'm going to come into my presets. I'm going to go with my single shot HDR preset, and then we'll start from there. So now I can get the brush and I can drop down these highlights. I don't want to drop down the highlights globally because I don't want to drop these down. I just want the highlights in this section up here. So that's a little too much. I don't want it to look ridiculous, but I don't want it to look super blown out either. Alright, I think that's alright. And then while I'm in the brush, I'm going to make a new brush. And I'm going to add some clarity. And a little bit of texture to this front area. That's where I want the focus anyways. And it's just going to give it a little more pop. Alright, now I'm just going to tweak the rest of this image a little bit more. Alright, I'm happy with that for camera raw. Alright, so now we're in Photoshop. We can finish cleaning this up a little bit. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a copy so that I can clean out a little bit of this stuff down here. I don't like this stick. Go away. Alright,
I'm gonna leave those two big sticks because I just don't feel like messing with that. Alright, let's do a little bit of color grading here, and then I think I'll be happy with this. I don't want to push it too hard. Alright, I think I'm happy with that. A little bit of color grading there. Okay, that one's good. Let's check out another one. Ooh, I like this V shape here, or this U shape. I like that. Let's do this one. I can probably get away with just doing the single shot here. Wow, I'm actually pretty impressed by the ability to pull the highlights down in the RAWs on this, because small sensors, phones, and even with the raw images, I typically haven't had that great of luck. Okay, so that was the first couple of images, and so far I'm pretty happy. The more that I test this phone and the more that I test, especially the RAW, being able to recover those highlights to me was impressive. I usually say shoot for the highlights, expose for the highlights, because especially in a lot of sensors, like little sensors especially, highlights you just can't recover. And there are some images that I took here where, you know, it's blown out, but that's why I bracketed. And doing the HDR on here, in, you know, taking those DNGs and doing the HDR in Photoshop is not a problem at all. And I actually think that it came out looking really nice. So like I mentioned before about the filters, I have this little guy. I don't think you guys could see it very well before, but that's the little moment universal holder, which has been pretty handy up until the S21 Ultra, and it does work. You know, it's just not as secure as I would like it. And then we've got these little guys. So what I really like about this filter is that you have this guy on the back, and those just clip right into, like, this is my S21 or my S20, and that is wonderful. So I really love being able to do that, and I have like the moment lenses and stuff, because on all the other phones we didn't have an option in pro mode for using the wide or the telephoto, and we still don't have an option for using the telephoto. So if you ever want to do long exposures or use pro mode and you want those other options for the focal lengths, you're gonna have to get a lens, and you can get any kind of lens. I just happen to use moment because I've been using them for so long, and they're kind of the best out there for phone lenses. But I have the links in the description if you guys want to check out all of the moment stuff, like with the cases and the clips and the filters. They have so many different kinds of filters, but usually I just end up using my regular ones like I did with the breakthrough and just holding it over. And it doesn't matter what kind of filter you have. All it matters is that you have a filter and that it's strong enough to get you the slow shutter speeds that you're gonna need. So I've been really happy so far with what I've been able to get out of the S21 Ultra. I think it's pretty impressive with both editing the RAW and the JPEG files. The HDR on board, if you're just gonna shoot in auto for normal stuff, I think does an incredible job. It's definitely better than any of the other Samsung phones I've had, including my S20 Ultra. And then the new sensor on the S21 Ultra seems to be doing pretty well with the improved dynamic range and the ability to rein in those highlights and boost those shadows without too much artifacting or noise introduction or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. I've already done one astrophotography session with the S21, so if you want to see more long exposure stuff and how that compares specifically to the S20, you can check that video out, and I'll have more coming, including the Milky Way, as soon as the Milky Way rises. But we've got to wait another 6 to 8 weeks for that. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to show you guys. So after we were driving home, the clouds started getting really good, and I pulled over to do some time lapses, of course, with my regular cameras, and Brittany got out. So the S21 Ultra that I'm using is actually my wife's phone, and I had already given it back to her, and she came out next to me and she snapped this shot. This is with the 10 times zoom in auto in the regular photo mode, and I snapped the same shot, and I think that the S21 Ultras looks way better with the 10 times zoom. This is with no editing at all, and I'm definitely impressed with the improvements on the 10 times zoom. The way that they broke it up with the S21 Ultra, having the 3 times zoom and then the 10 times zoom separate, is giving me that bump in just image quality overall, and I'm really happy with that. Also, those lenticular clouds are fantastic. Alright, so I'm going to wrap it up here. If you guys have any questions about the long exposure techniques or anything like that, I've got a lot of other videos on more in detail on how to do long exposures. If you haven't seen those already, you can check them out. If you want to see more on the S21, if you're watching this in the future, check the S21 playlist that I have. It'll have all the videos that I'm doing with and for and about the S21 Ultra in there. Alright, that's it. Questions, comments down below. Hit that like button if this video helped you out or if you enjoyed it. That's the best thing you can do for my channel. It helps me so much and I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already because I've got new videos every week. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.